Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed part 1 with Gra Johnson from ProLine's Nutrition and Alora Naturals. We got part 2 for you right now. I just wanted to let you guys know, if you are a business in British Columbia, I'm offering until the end of the month. You have until the end of the month, so only a couple days here. If you want one free short form video, please reach out to me at CGS Collective on Instagram. Send me your company info, send me any footage you have, and I will give you one free short that you can use on any of your social media pages, captions and all. You just have to provide me the footage and I'll turn it into something amazing. So CGS Collective on Instagram, it's a brand new page, it's a brand new business, and I'm opening it up to everyone, any business in the British Columbia area that, we could potentially do some work in the future. And I hope I can make a knockout video for you. Just remember, you have until Canada Day, July 1st, so you only have a couple days here. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'll make you one free video. With all that being said, thank you so much to Gra and the entire ProLines and Alora team. And everybody, enjoy this episode.
The price point. This is where the market wants the product to be. This is where the taste profile needs to be. This is the product that we can make in that. And then, will it work? Will it not work? And then the last is really probably just building it in so like a program, like how do we see this fitting into our selection of products? There's lots of interesting things on the market, and there's, God, I don't even know how many supplements there would be on the market, like millions. But we want to keep it around a core, right? Like all the really niche stuff, maybe not necessarily where we want to go, although we make some very niche products, but we feel that they fall into a particular category. Like Tia Green is a fairly niche product, yes. Oh, yeah. But I'm a huge proponent of it. Like I think the entire population is so over-caffeinated to the point where I don't even think half of the time it works for them. And Tia Green allowing that half-life to be extended, allowing you to take less caffeine and feel the same result. 45 minutes or an hour of energy, that's not good, right? Like that up and down is not what I'm looking for. I want to take my pre-workout. I want to get to the gym. I want to put a solid workout in. I want to go home and still have energy. I don't want to be wiped out and just collapsing, having this crash. And Tia Green is probably the greatest equalizer in that. But it's pretty niche, right? Like at this stage, we might be the only ones in Canada making it. And so we'll continue on certain products like that, because again, we're not necessarily looking to be the biggest company on the market. We'll look at, does this product work? Does it fit into what we want to push forward? Does it help another product in the lineup excel? And sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes there's no market for these things. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. And what is, being in the industry for so long, what shifts have you seen recently? If you're trying to start a supplement company, if you're trying to start a supplement store, what shifts have you seen in the past, 5 years, where when you got into it, it just either didn't exist or it's a completely new game now?
So it's probably the social media influence is the number one thing. Products get hot for periods of time simply because they made those rounds. The disinformation side of it, or the lack of science behind a lot of why these things take off, that's much more unusual than when I got started. Back in the day, not that this didn't happen either. There were a lot of claims that were made that weren't real. But the social media influence and the younger generation not being as diligent into the products, right? Like when I started in it, when I was young and when I was competing, when we took a product, our intention was there was no chance we were taking it if we weren't committed to it for 3 to 6 months. And then we would see what the results were and we would make a judgment based on that. And it wasn't whether it worked that day, like I took it, it worked, or I took this and I should be Mr. Olympia tomorrow. Like we looked at it and went, okay, well, there's a science before it. I see how this will accelerate mine. I understand that building muscle and increasing performance isn't something that happens overnight. So I will look at this, and I'll look at 3 months, and I'll look at 6 months, and I'll see if it worked out for me. And if it didn't, then we moved on to something else, and if it did, we continued with it. But we gave everything a legitimate shot. Now it's much more trendy on why people try something or do something, or they put this belief into the person that's put it forward. So Garcinia, does Garcinia work? Yes. It's an effective appetite suppressant. Is it going to cause you to shed 20 pounds in a month? No. Right? But it doesn't mean that it doesn't have its place and it's not a tool. But if you think anything is going to just instantly change what's going on with you, that's not how a quality supplement would generally work. Again, handful of exceptions for instant gratification products, like you take caffeine, you feel caffeine, you get the benefits of caffeine, and then that's it. And there's no long-term benefit, right? It's
And even it comes that it's whether they're looking at does it work right away, like, you know, caffeine, like the pre-workouts of the world, because you can feel that right away. But also the other side, it's like taste. So even a lot of these companies, and even the shifts that I'm starting to notice too, it's not even when I first got into this, where it was like bodybuilders, people who are trying to live like this, you know, when competing became really, really big. I remember when a lot of people were trying to compete and bodybuild and stuff like that. There was that market. Now I'm starting to notice like the shift of not everyone trying to be like this ultra, like this big person that has a lot of muscle on it, that is a bodybuilder, is like very, very fit. It's kind of like the people in the middle that are just like, I want to be healthy, but I don't care to have like a lot of muscle on me as well. But at the same time, I care if it tastes good. I care if it does this, because they're not so hyper focused on their goal. So it's just like, I just want to be kind of healthy, whether they realize that or not. You know what I mean? It's like, I need to be a little bit healthier than I already am.
I think attention spans have gone down significantly. So whether that's with what product you're using or whatever it may be.
And demands have gone up.
Yeah, and you're just scrolling. So when you don't like something, you scroll on to the next thing.
Yeah. And that touches on the other two that I would have, which is back in the day, like taste for us was a non-factor.
Yeah.
Right. Like the stuff that we drank, there is no chance that today's generation would drink.
I remember the first pre-workout I tried was a Super Pump 250, I think. It tasted so bad, but you didn't care then because everything else was just...
And that wasn't even close to as bad as you know they were. Yeah. Now, in fairness, you can, for the most part, buy pretty high-end quality products that taste good. But now, good's not good enough anymore. Right now, everything has to taste like Kool-Aid, or, you know, and it's actually become, does it work, almost seems less important to whether it tastes good. So that's definitely a big difference on that side of it. And then, yeah, the expectation side. There, like I said before, is we put in the time. You know, we expected to make a judgment over 3 to 6 months, whether something was working or not. Now it's like, well, I took that and I'm still benching what I did yesterday. Okay, but like, what do you expect out of this? So
a magic formula or a magic pill or anything that is instantly gonna do anything for you.
Well, listen, if that pill existed, that's all we'd make.
Absolutely, and that's all everybody would take, right?
Like, why would you even bother investing? And why would you do the work if you could have these things? But that's just not how this works. And then the third point is what you brought up as well, is back in my day, it was supplements were primarily for the bodybuilder, the athletic side. It wasn't so much the average person using them. Yeah. And so now we've seen that shift, and there's far less bodybuilders probably now than there was, like, well, by definition, bodybuilders. So people are probably more interested in being lean and strong than being big and strong.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of moved more towards middle ground, which is common. It's you deal with the biggest population base. And then that perception of doing something healthy. And that's the one that worries me the most, is I take AG1 because I know that taking greens is good for me. Is that the best greens though? You know, like, maybe we should think about this a little bit more. Take a look at some of the other products that are on the market. It's great that motivated you to get going, and yes, you should be taking a greens, but you should also be taking the right one. And not all greens are best for all people. Like our greens is a very strong adaptogen profile in it. That eliminates pregnant women from the customer base, right? So we're not there saying that it's for everybody. We make a greens that we make it for the biggest or the population base that we're targeting the most. We understand that not everybody falls into that. And we don't skimp on ingredients. So by green standards, do we taste good? Yes. Are you going to sit out on your patio and enjoy a glass? Probably not. But, are you going to feel better? Is your health going to be? Absolutely.
Definitely. What would you say, what would be your comments, Gra, on people who say, I don't need to take supplements. I get enough through my diet. Especially nowadays, because I have an answer to that as well. But
yeah, it's an interesting question. So, do you need to take supplements if your diet is in check and you're the average person? No. Are you getting as much out of your food as you did in the past, given soil conditions and the processing of things? Absolutely not. Do most people eat at a level that would give them the nutritional support that they need? Absolutely not. If you're not preparing every single meal that you make, if there's not a fruit, vegetable component to everything you make, if you're eating processed foods, you're probably not getting it. If you're eating twice a day, maybe even 3 times a day, chances are you're deficient somewhere. So that specificity or the specifics of who you would, everyone's gonna have a slightly different need, right? Like a vegan's going to be deficient in leucine and in B12. There's supplements that a vegan would need that the regular person wouldn't need. Someone who eats a lot of processed foods, their needs are going to be different again as well. So yeah, if you were right on top of things, and you did it right all the time, when we're just talking about general health, you could probably get away without supplements. From a performance standpoint, supplements, of course, are going to increase your performance. Like it's undeniable. This is just too much science and too much data to back it up. And you would never be able to get enough creatine in your diet to get those benefits from what you would get out of a creatine.
Definitely. And even we're touching on greens, very similar to greens as well. That's one of the reasons why I take it too, where I have been taking it religiously for 10 years, because I know that is one area of my diet where I know I could definitely improve on. I try to do my best, but same thing if you're taking a masking or someone's coming in and needs a masking, it's like, well, it's an additive to what you're already currently doing. Like you need that surplus, well, you take a masking to help you get past that, to help you gain a little bit of weight. Yeah. And even greens, like it's not like I'm completely not drinking greens, right? But like it's to get the nutritional value from from the different greens that I'm normally not getting, like cruciferous, sea vegetables, things like that. Yeah, where a lot of people aren't. It's
foods, yeah.
Yeah, because
how often do you eat acai berries?
No, like
right?
Ever. Where can you even get them?
Yeah,
all the time.
And it's sometimes, can you consume enough of them to get you to the level you want to be? Because there's a very big difference between general health and then supplementing for performance. Your requirements are completely different. An athlete doesn't function off a normal person's diet. A sedentary person, it doesn't have the same needs. Like all these things are individualized, and sometimes it's about like the greens. So again, our greens is we focus very heavy on the adaptogen, the anti-stress side. So we want to make sure that this daily life side of it is not beating people down, taxing their systems, slowing up systems. And then you want that detox side of it, make sure that you're cleaning the system out and you're recovering and rejuvenating the way that you want. There's a phytonutrient component to it from like the spirulinas and the corellas and the wheat grasses and the oat grasses. But we couldn't put enough broccoli in there to really make a significant difference. And then on top of that, there's just like number one rule, and this is from a guy who sells supplements, is never more liquid than solid, right? Like that's just it's a standard bodybuilding procedure. Has been the same way for 50 years. Is supplements are exactly what they say they are. They're supplementation to a proper diet. They are not to replace proper diet and nutrition profiles. Taking a pre-workout will aid you in your workout. It doesn't replace your workout. And if you're so exhausted that you can't function without a pre-workout, you have a much bigger problem than taking your pre-workout, right? You should be looking at, why am I like this? Like, if you need 600 milligrams of caffeine to get moving, you've got problems. You should address those problems. You should not look for something to put a Band-Aid on that problem and just get you through. It's a supplement. It should not be leaned upon as the only way you're able to get this done.
Yeah, we know someone like that.
Yeah, we do.
we all do.
Yeah, like 1,200 milligrams of caffeine before a workout and you're just...
Yeah, we've seen that.
Like my mind just going like fireworks right away.
Well, at that level, there's nothing but downside.
Yeah.
Legit.
I think after 600 milligrams, it's considered toxic for your body.
Yeah,
It is.
and really above 200 milligrams, the benefits are starting to dissipate and the negatives are starting to increase.
Yeah, well, think how much it's dehydrating you when you're working out. You need to be hydrated before you work out, train, do sports, or do anything to perform at an optimal level, right? And people are like, oh no, but it's got 6 grams of L-citrulline in there to, I'm gonna get a good pump. I'm like, yeah, but that's why I double scooped it. For example, I'm like, yeah, but also like that 600 milligrams of caffeine, like, do you know, are you aware how much it's dehydrating you? How much, like, I highly doubt you're going to guzzle down a bunch of water. And then on top of that, it's okay. I'll guzzle down a bunch of water. It's okay. But like, you probably will urinate most of that away too. If you're just going to sit there and drink like a liter of water after downing your pre-workout, right?
Well, and ultimately, what did that pump really do for you?
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Great answer. It's a one-off.
Yeah, and see, great. So you looked a little bit better in the mirror.
Yeah.
Or are you suggesting that you don't get a pump if you don't train? Well, you should, right? Like, again, I would say if you work out and you don't get a pump, you either have a problem, or you're not training hard enough. Mm-hmm. Now, can you accelerate that and increase that? Of course, right? But is that the driving factor? That's probably not the way I would go about it. So like pre-workouts are interesting is for me, the biggest thing with the pre-workout is, one, deliver enough of the ingredient to make sure that the performance is going to be impacted and that the science is there to show that performance will be impacted. But it's also about the mental state. So if you think about the best workout you've ever had, it's not when you were so wired that you could barely keep things under control, right? Like you're bouncing off the walls. If you're ever trained like that, you're never as strong. You sort of peak out very, very quickly, and then you start to crash. The dehydration sets in, anxiety sets in. The best workouts you've had is when you walked into the gym and you were in a good mental state and you had a good meal the night before, your diet was on place, you had a good night's sleep, you weren't fighting with your spouse or your boss. All these things create this zone. So like when we developed the pre-workout, is we looked at it and went, how do we create this zone on a regular basis? And so that's why Overkill was formulated the way that it was. That's why we focused on a lot of mood enhancing ingredients inside of the product. Because we know if we can create that state will perform better results than almost anything else. Because really, if it was just about a matter of taking 400 milligrams of caffeine, well, caffeine's cheap. Just take 400 milligrams of caffeine. It's not gonna...
You can get caffeine pills for like six bucks.
$600.
Yeah. And it's ultimately, like if that's all it took, like, can anyone tell me they're bigger because they took caffeine? No. Now, did it give you the mental alertness to get in and get after a workout? Sure, right? But again, like ultimately, you should be able to create that state without these massive dosages of these things. Like that's the that's the interesting part about dynamine and teacrine versus caffeine, is that there's no adaptation point on either of those. So they work the same way day one as they do day 365. Whereas caffeine, every time you take it, and the more regularly you take it, the more you require to get the result out of it. The CNS system just doesn't respond after a period of time. You have to keep upping the dosage. And once you cross 200 milligrams, then that's where that really starts to set in. So most people are well in excess of 300. Like even for me, about 300 is about my max. That's about as high as I would ever go, and I'd prefer to keep it around. And again, listen, we formulate a product that's got 400 milligrams of caffeine in it. I can't take a full scoop. It's too much for me.
Will you ever come out with a product with less caffeine or a stim-free variant of it?
So we would love to, but there is the market does kind of dictate what that will do. Now the stim-free side of it is something that we have on our drawing board. The problem again is that, you know, sometimes you make a product that is so niche that it can't survive. And listen, caffeine does drive the pre-workout market. You know, like we had added teacrine to Overkill in the beginning, and not putting it in just to say that we had it on the label. We had a full dose, or not teacrine, excuse me, dynamine. But neither teacrine or dynamine tastes very good. So when you start using full dosages, then again, the product didn't taste bad, but it didn't taste great. And it was difficult to get the consumer on. They all loved the result, but it's not like it was when I was younger. Like, I drank it all day long, right? Because it produced what I wanted it to produce. So we made an alteration to it, and we have those products available if you see the value in them and you think that you could just take the capsule with it. And teacrine's something I take every day. So now the dynamine, I'll use that. So because their half-lives are different, so dynamine's mid-acting, teacrine's long-acting. So if it's nighttime or later in night, I'll use dynamine. If it's morning, I'll use teacrine.
Interesting. And when you're formulating supplements, I've always wondered this. How do you guys formulate and suggest dosages to somebody who's is 130 pounds versus somebody who is 230 pounds? Does that play a role in how suggestions of dosages are like figured out, or does it play much of a role in the human body, that giant weight difference, or is it just unique metabolism? Everybody's kind of different.
So it's actually all of those things. So you would think that there would be much more body size based dosages, but it's not how the industry works. So you use a baseline where you know that the results will apply to most people. But of course, body weight will factor in. Now on some ingredients, it makes no difference. It's just the body requires a particular dosage and your size is not relevant. Things like nootropics, if you're 240 pounds, your brain is not 5 pounds heavier than the average person. It's the same. And so as long as that ingredient crosses the blood-brain barrier and gets in and can be utilized, it doesn't matter whether you're a 99-pound woman or if you're a 240-pound bodybuilder. So there's so many nuances that would go into that you can't formulate individually based on that, because you also don't know if that person's 240 pounds fat or 240 pounds lean, and all these things make a factor. So that's part of that, learning to read a label, understanding what ingredients do, where you fit inside of it, what you want out of the product, and then trying to tailor fit the result to your need. Some people can't take caffeine, right? Like you give them 100 milligrams and they have to go home. They're just too wired. So there's all these little nuances that you have to work around. So you do it in generalities, and you try to rely on the research data as much as you can, but most of the time the combination of ingredients is not what the studies were done on. The studies were generally done on the individual ingredients. So you're putting them together, looking for things that will support each other's, and you can kind of think of it as you have a destination, and then you try to figure out as many ways you can get to that destination without traveling the same pathway. Because lots of times doubling up on a pathway doesn't produce greater results. Sometimes it does, but not all the time. You're much better at, can I get there this way? And can now I also get there this way? And can I get there another way? And then can I get a much higher sort of synergistic approach to it?
Great. How about let's touch on a little bit of your journey in the industry, because I'm sure everyone that's listening right now can agree that Gray really knows what he's talking about. Always learn something new every time we sit with you.
Well, and remember, it's not, there's so many people so much smarter than I will ever be in the industry. Yeah. Most of mine comes from just being in it that long. And so you see these things and you do a lot of trial and error and you come up with those sides of it. So I started at 21 working in a fitness equipment store. They had a supplement section. I took that side of it over. I grew at that store. I ended up buying one of the locations. Then I started my own supplement distribution company because it was always a big interest for me. I was starting to get into the competitive bodybuilder side at that time. Then from there, I went to work for a much larger distribution company, probably one of the largest ones in Canada. And then I went to the Reflex chain, so a chain of retailers here in BC, although they've expanded outside of that area now. I was their VP for a number of years. And I went back to distribution and then went to Nutrabolics as their vice president, and then came over to ProLine as their CEO.
Okay. And those were all kind of different roles as well that you kind of took on each and every single time?
Yeah, so there's probably not much inside of the industry or like inside of our subsect of the industry that I haven't done. So we'll say it's a bit of a unique understanding on having worked the retail side, having owned in the retail side, having worked in the distribution side, having worked in the manufacturing side. So it covers most of the bases. So it gives our company maybe a bit of a unique look at things. So we don't always do things the same as other people because we're taking into account both our end customers' need, but our business customers' needs as well as ours. Yeah. And then our owners have a very solid moral core. So we make sure that, we adhere to the pride that we want to put behind our products and the name of the products. Sanj and Neera are brother sister who own the company, and they take a lot of pride in what they do.
How much? What were kind of like the challenges? Because of course, like when you're a distributor, when you're making your own products, you're obviously there's a moral side. You're trying to make the best product. You're trying to get it out there, figure out your target market, and then obviously whether it's online sales or get it to retailers. There's all that, and I get that, but when it comes to the retailers, where they're carrying a bunch of different products, how do you what were kind of the challenges or how navigating that or your experiences through that?
So for the retail side, the biggest challenge that we run into is that we don't have that marketing budget. We pour that money back into the formulas. And so that means that the partners that we are the strongest with have to have a similar sort of outlook as we do, which is delivering the best product to their customer that they can, not necessarily the trendiest. But there's in no world where you can survive doing just that as a retailer. Yeah. Like you have to carry what people want, and whether that's the best product or not sometimes doesn't matter, but you're able to then give them your opinion, still fulfill their need. Yeah. And I always give this example. So when I owned my retail stores, there was a particular product that had come out that I knew didn't work. I didn't believe in it. The science didn't back it up, and I wouldn't carry it. It's the hottest product on the market. So everybody just went to my competition and bought it. And so not only did I lose my customer base, I lost my ability to talk to my customers and to interact with them and work to give them the best products and the best information. I could have carried that product and simply told them, listen, I don't believe this is the right choice. If you want it though, I have it for you, but let's monitor how it works for you. And then when they didn't get the results, and they didn't because it didn't work, then we could move them into a different direction. The people want to try stuff. I want to try stuff all the time. I try lots of stuff that doesn't work. I mean, yeah, I go to trade shows around the country, and I pick up ingredients all the time, always looking for something new, and there's always data behind it, and there's always an application for it, but they don't always work the way that you're sort of led to believe they will. But you can't stop looking, you can't stop trying. You know, it's so much more advanced than when I started. Like the ingredients, what the new generation has access to is staggering. Like they can do so much.
Yeah.
It just wasn't that way.
Yeah.
Like it when I started, it was protein powders, carb powders, caffeine, ephedrine, like
And then
that.
creatine just started coming
And
out.
creatine, when
It wouldn't even really, it's hard to absorb too, because it was like the powder wasn't micronized.
yeah, and honestly, it was sold 100 grams at a time,
Oh,
and it was super expensive. Like you buy a kilo today for what we were paying for 100 grams of creatine, right? It was a different time, and the only ones at that time using creatine were athletes, and primarily Eastern Bloc athletes. Not even the North American side had barely come to that side of it yet. So anytime that we would get someone in from an Eastern-based company and we showed them the bottles, so they laughed at us. They're like, "What are you going to do with 100 grams of creatine?" It's,
That's funny. And I guess that leads to another question. Do you notice outside of North America, is the supplement game ran differently? Is that anything that you pay attention to? What maybe people are doing over in Europe, maybe in Asia?
that's very different.
How so?
So, and part of my role in Nutribolics was international sales. So I've traveled all over the world. I've been to pretty much every continent. We've dealt with customers in every single continent around the world. North America is by far the most advanced. Like we are at the cutting edge of the technology. There's countries that are just getting into what we did 10 years ago. There's also an economic component to it when you travel to other countries around the world. We take it for granted a protein powder is something we can buy here. In some of these countries, a protein powder is something you and your buddy save up for, and you buy a container and you share it because that's all you can afford. And so the way they view supplements is very different. So they look at what's going to produce the best result. You know, what do I need the most? Because they don't have 5 products in their stack. You know, even a pre-workout in a lot of these marketplaces is not the dominant product like it is here, because they can have a coffee or they can get a caffeine through a certain source. They need to make sure that they're getting enough protein powder, or you know that they're getting the very basics. Like creatine will produce very good results for a very low cost in comparison. We think of it as just this add-on and a given. They think of it as a predominant portion of their stack. So for them to buy more than a couple of products on a per month basis in a lot of these countries is just not how it works. So protein powder is the dominant product. And then the legalization of a lot of these products in some of these countries, their regulations are very different as well. So there's countries where if you put a product in a capsule, you can't sell it anymore. Just because you capsulate it makes it a pharmaceutical product. But if you left it in a powder, it would be legal. So there's so many nuances from every country, and how they register it, what they allow and what they don't allow. Canada is a very restrictive country in terms of the products. Canada, you have to prove a product's safe, and you have to get it in the Health Canada's monograph before you can bring it to market. In a lot of countries, you know, and the U.S. is very much this way, is it's almost you have to prove it's not safe. You know, you can probably do anything with it, but there's that legal side that they're always concerned about. But the addition of caffeine in a lot of countries is not allowed. Like, you're simply not allowed. So pre-workouts are not big sellers, because the driver in the pre-workout, the instant gratification, is the caffeine side.
I noticed that because I was in Europe, I guess I just got back, 3 weeks ago? So I was there for 3 weeks, and every country at this, we walk around downtown, sometimes you'd see some boat more predominantly, I would see Barnes and Noble is a big one out there, and like I think they've been around for like over 100 years too. But when you walk into one of those stores, it's completely different than how supplement stores are here. Like they're more like a natural stuff, like how like a I don't know, kind of like how a natural health store is. It's more so about vitamins and minerals. They're not like pre-workouts and like protein and like advertising, people getting super big or helping your athletic performance. So yeah, that was super neat.
Some markets are driven by the health food side of it. Some markets are driven by the sports side. Like Morocco, there's almost no health food stores.
Oh wow.
But there's lots of sport nutrition. It's, for whatever reason, that's how that country operates.
Yeah.
But then you get into England, health food stores common.
Yeah.
Even certain ingredients, like there's things that we sell, and you can do this by city almost, or by province here in Canada as well. Some things are popular in certain regions for whatever reason, and maybe not as popular somewhere else.
What's the most popular product for you guys in BC then? Is it the protein powder being the most popular?
Yeah,
or?
so ISO Advanced is our number one seller, and then specifically on the natural side. So we have a very strong following in that market because we were making good tasting natural based protein powders probably before almost anybody else. That doesn't mean that other companies didn't make them, but their taste profile probably wasn't at our level, and they didn't have the selection of flavors. Now everybody's caught up since that time, but we were established in that market, so we do quite well in that market.
Fair. And do you guys as companies, different companies like you guys as ProLines and Alora and other BC companies, do you guys talk back and forth about your products at all? Or is that any like banter at trade shows, or like is there any discussion?
Yeah, so at the trade show side, you'll see a degree of, we'll call it camaraderie. We compare notes to some degree, and just like in all aspects of life, there's some people you get along with better than others. Years ago, it was much more of a fight.
Oh.
Like nobody liked each other, nobody talked to each other. Now there's an understanding, like we're all here to exist. There's more good than bad. But like all things, there's going to be people that you don't get along with. There's going to be companies that have philosophies that don't match yours. And there's going to be people that trust and are more willing to help than others. Like for us, I love giving information out. It makes the industry stronger and better. So I love to have the dialogue with other people. It also helps us be better. So I have far more friends in the industry today than back in the day. I had far more enemies probably back then than now. But I have friends who work for Muscle Tech or companies that dwarf us, and Muscle Tech does not view us as any competition. So it obviously the internal workings of the companies stays off the table, but the talk of the ingredients and where market trends are and they're great conversations to have with people, and it helps the industry.
Yeah, gatekeeping formulas or just discussions and stuff like that isn't always the most productive for everybody, right?
And it doesn't work anyways. Like, again, maybe back in the day when everybody was proprietary and you could hide a degree of things, it was more useful. Now, like this is something people probably don't know, but in Canada, if your product's legal in Canada, you have to have an NPN number. Mm-hmm. And so you have to tell the government what your formula is to get your NPN number. And that's posted online. So what secret are you trying to, and so it's something I would encourage people, like if you really want to know what's in your products, just look the NPN up. And then if the NPN doesn't match your bottle, or, you look at that NPN. Now, this process requires a bit of work because in the NPN site, things are listed as their pharmaceutical names, not their common names. So in a lot of cases, you would see the ingredient and you wouldn't even know what it was. So, like taurine's descriptor is not taurine. It's a full-fledged chemical name. So you'd have to backtrack it and find it out. But it's nice to know that if you really want to know what's in your products, you can look them up. And if you want to know if the product that you're taking is actually even legal for Canada, you can look it up.
That's spot on. And for you guys in the next couple years, is there, I don't know if you can talk about it, but do you have any products coming out soon that you guys are in the works in that are maybe even just road mapping that you guys are excited about?
So we always have a number of products that are in the pipeline. How much we want to say about them, probably becomes questionable, but they also change a lot because we're always looking at research data and new ingredients. We had a vegan protein that we were super excited about bringing out. We would have been the first people in the world to launch this product. And it was from a startup that found a way to extract protein out of a particular source at a ratio that nobody's ever seen before. It was also what we call an upcycled product. So it was made from a waste byproduct off of another ingredient. So it was super exciting in the fact that it covered the eco side of it. It was a very high quality protein at a very high percentage. It was super unique to us, but they couldn't get off the ground. Yeah. And so that, we had this product in the work for almost a year and had to abandon it. And so then, we move on to that next concept and we see how it works. And we have particular areas that we're more interested in than others. Like, I'm a huge nootropic guy, so I'm always interested in that side of it. So anti-aging as I've gotten older. So there are components where our brand tends to specify a little bit more so than others. But we have a couple products that we're hoping by the end of this year will come on.
No, even I remember when you first came, actually, the fun story for everyone, the first people we ever met in the industry face to face was actually Gray and James. Remember, Arvin? They came in and honestly,
They sat right here.
Yeah, they sat right here. But it was interesting to us because I was just like, who the hell are we? For someone to take out our time. So I've told Gray this before, but that honestly meant a lot to us. And even now, I'll go to them for just about anything, for information or for advice and stuff like that, because we're still new in the game as well. We try to do things different, just such as this podcast, to get ourselves out there and to help grow our business. But it's very helpful when you have people who have skin in the game and are willing to help and even willing to come on our podcast.
We're excited. You guys are a great partner. And listen, in the greater scheme of things, us as a company, we're nobody, right? Like, we are a very, very small company. We're finding our niche of products and the things that we want to put out. And like I said, our intention is not to be the biggest supplement company brand in the world. It doesn't match with what we want to do for a philosophy, how we want to go about it. It wouldn't allow us to do it, and we're fine with that. That's not our role in the marketplace. And we do it with companies that we talk to all the time. It's much easier when you know your space and your role, and you be humble and you remember people helped you get to where you were going, and you extend that out to other people as well.
Definitely, because I think when a lot of people, when they start a business, they just think about being the biggest and baddest in their industry off the bat. That's all fine and dandy, but especially when you're starting off, like even for us, it's okay. When we do our marketing initiatives and things like that, we need to realize that we're not catering to all of Canada. We're catering to Abbotsford, right? Obviously, when we get online, it's a whole different game, and we're figuring that side out, which we still currently are doing. But it's just the exact same piece you said, Gray, is just being humble and kind of realizing what you're trying to get out of your business, and then attacking that, because there's a lot of money to be made in niche markets as well, what people don't realize, instead of just like being marketing to the masses, to everybody.
Oh yeah, and how you get there, you can be the biggest brand in the market, but you're probably not going to get there by taking the approach from day one that the biggest brand in the market is currently employing. Mm-hmm. It's not likely going to work, because that's not how they got there either. So knowing your role just serves you better ultimately. Doesn't mean that you can't get bigger, that you can't be far bigger than you ever anticipated. It's just, hey, one step after another, right? Like, jumping steps seldom works out. It doesn't work out in your training. It doesn't work out in your business. Generally doesn't work out in your life.
Somebody's growing too fast can really kill your business as well.
But you can put yourself out of business just based off of the success of your business.
Yeah.
You can literally sell yourself out of business.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've kind of faced that too at one point, because we just wanted to be the best and get after it and do all these different dishes, but it costs money to do that as well, right? And when you're at the beginning of it, like I said, it could really mess things up. So you take it slow and steady, of course, and then just make the most impact in like the smaller groups of people. And then if you keep doing that, I mean, things compound, right? Things compound all the time, and you slowly but we'll see that growth. And then maybe year 4 or 5 or whatever it is, you'll see like that compounded growth, like that's taken you, to the top.
Well, it's building a solid base is, you make sure that that's stable before you start stepping out. And, for your listeners, this applies to your diets, and it applies to your training, and it applies to just general life, is make sure that where you're standing is solid before you really start rocking that boat. If you start a supplementation program and you take, the 5 hottest products on the market, how do you even know what any one of those products is doing? They're all mixed together. You don't know which one's working for you or not. Step into it, build the base, then look to expand upon that. Same thing with your training. Like, okay, if you want to be the strongest squatter in the gym, well, you don't start with that guy's weight, because it'll break you in half.
Yeah.
You've got to build up to it, right? And all things are that way.
Yeah, and you control everything but time, right? That's the only thing. So,
and even time, honestly, you have some control over.
Yeah.
As long as you have, we say it in our sales meetings all the time, is that if you don't know where you're going, getting there is substantially more difficult, and very seldom is it ever just a straight line. But the one guarantee is that if you don't even know where you're going, the start to that is disastrous. And at least if you know that's where I want to go, these are the steps I'll have to follow to get there.
So great. Well, one thing we like to do at the end of our podcast is just a message, just to anyone. I don't know. It seems like to us that you followed your passion when you started off when you're 21 years old, and this is where you are, CEO of a supplement company, which is pretty friggin' cool. And I know a lot of our viewership will find that very neat as well. But what would be your message just to anyone just trying to do something with their life? We have a lot of young listeners as well. So what would be your lesson here?
I would say that probably the same thing I say to my sales team is understand what you're good at, what you're not good at, and find the joy in both aspects of that. A lot of people tend to focus only on what they're good at, but that's a fairly one-dimensional approach to things. Working at what you're not good at takes substantially more work, and if you can find the joy in that side of it, that's what will really accelerate you. Finding the joy in the things you like, that's the given, and that will always be your base. But the sort of follow your passion side of it, no one thing is just that. There's all these different branches to it, and you'll have to be competent in those areas. And so make sure that you can make those enjoyable, so that it's not a dread, and that you just don't think that having that passion will be the overriding thing and you'll always be able to survive beyond that. Life is far more complicated than just a one-directional approach. But if you can't find any joy in it, then get out of it and find something else, because it's a big rock to carry up a hill. So, but it's also a big rock to stop from rolling down the hill if you're not at least competent in it.
Funny. No, I love that. That's true. Yeah. So great. If anyone wants to find you or your companies, where could they check your guys' products out?
So the websites are probably the easiest. ProLineNutrition.ca, AloraNaturals.com. Our social media is linked inside of there. Yeah. And then the biggest thing is obviously just get out and support our partners and talk to our partners. Because chances are that if we're partnered up with them, they have a similar philosophy to us. And we're not available everywhere, so we do have a select group of people that we deal with.
Yeah, including us. Check us out in store, guys. We carry a lot of ProLine and Alora. Why? Because this products works. Yeah, we personally, all three of us sitting at this table, take ProLine and Alora products.
Yeah, it's in my cupboard at home.
Yeah, exactly. So whether it's at the supplement house, guys, or just at ProLine Nutrition or at Alora, check it out, guys. Even coming into the store, if you are in the Abbotsford area, we always have tons of samples at our sample station, whether it's the greens, the protein, and I think you guys will be impressed. If not, check us out on www.supplementhouse.ca, and keep an eye out. We'll be having a nice little sale, so you guys can take advantage of that as well. But great, thank you very much.
No, thank you guys.
Yeah, for coming on. This was awesome. A little bit different with a lot of information. I don't know, a lot of people will be able to learn a lot of cool things. And until next time, guys, be good.